Welcome to the Tug of Heart podcast on Strong Island Radio. This is the place where we dig deep into the heart to rise in love. So let's join good friends Lori and Marianne as they discuss understanding and living from the heart.
Hello and welcome to Tug of Heart. This is Lori here with Mary Mo, a.k.a. Marianne.
Hi
I guess
there,
I said
Laura.
that backwards. This is just a little snippet to kind of introduce where we're headed and reintroduce you. I would like others to recognize parts of you that I do.
Oh, Lori.
Because we're moving into stuff that I will just absolutely demand you allow me to lean heavily on you for, because this has been your life's work.
It's true. It's true.
And there's no other way around it, right? This is the way to go. So we're talking about recognition, the importance of it, and we did this really fast. It almost sounded like the Voices in the Head fast overview of recognition, and so much can still be said about it, and looked at, examined, and then actually put into practice. But I want to start with what we know works, so that we have something actually to work with as we continue to understand. And that's very possible. I have said this before because I've seen you do this with kids. They're doing all this heart work, and we haven't had to explain the fundamentals of philosophy and all this other jargon to them, right? They just have this innate ability. To get right into that, I'm going to just say again, when we recognize an aspect of a person, we are recognizing essentially that they are a person, a human being. And everything that comes attached with that, specifically, which is said over and over, dignity. Their right to be here, their right to be with us, their right to develop to their complete capacity. Nothing less will do. And the only way to really interfere with that, people love to get into this thing, it's about goods, it's about this, it's about politics. It's about misrecognition first. And a lot of times the goods and stuff just is how we justify misrecognizing a person, a group of people. It's very convenient to also misrecognize for our own greed. That's a conscious choice. That's a whole different subject. But for today, just whether it happens accidentally or unintentionally or intentionally, whatever the case, misrecognition happens. And it all happens young. Society's been changing for quite a while, where kids traditionally had this time with the parents where they identified with their family. This is who I am. I belong. And started very young with that. And from that, this kind of natural progression, ideally again, of stepping out into the world proud of who you are, because isn't this how we raise our children? And the world is ready to receive all these gifts. That's what we're here for, to exchange all these wonderful gifts. Well, sometimes a child is not recognized for who they are and for what they are. And it's very damaging. It's the greatest offense to humanity in my book. And that's just when you recognize a child or an adult, anybody, because we are actually talking about all levels. We're speaking of children just to propose the idea that it's attainable on all levels.
Right.
Just like the heart, you can start anytime, any place. Don't even need running shoes. Just start. You're allowed in. And the only way it can go wrong is if you see a person and that something about them that you recognize is not positive. So you're seeing an aspect of them that's not good. This is not to say we don't all fall into positive and negative behaviors, action. But the person themselves needs to be recognized nonetheless. That's not up for compromise, ever, right? Okay, good. And when kids are developing a practical identity, and adults, anybody, it really happens just by interactions. I don't remember the whole of it, but I know I just even recently, most of what I think of me has to do with my interpretation of people's interpretation of me. Mm-hmm. It's so weird, right? And it just becomes this really echoey and less clear thing if we keep exchanging the more staticky feedback.
Yes.
That's not good feedback. The channel from heart to heart is quite insulated nicely. Marianne knows this. This you dream of it. And so this information can travel quite purely, wholly, and people get the right idea as it should. It stays intact. No misunderstanding, no misrecognizing. Unfortunately, we don't always operate like we should. So sometimes kids don't experience adequate recognition. Big fallout from that. The bottom line is if they don't feel recognized, they don't embrace themselves. Kids that don't embrace themselves, there's just a whole other thing. And I'm actually going to try not to overspeak on this. I would like to get to your valuable information. If you can speak on anything about how we must embrace ourselves. And then specifically, I just wanted to give you a chance to tell us today about your work in therapy. And Marianne, I have big reverence for your therapy and massive recognition, so I don't want to take anything away from it, but I am going to say that I attribute to you, beyond therapy, just your work as a human. So the work in humanity I value more.
Thank you. And, a big
so if we
part
can
of
start
being
there,
a good
yes.
therapist is truly being a good human. I really think
I'm glad you
must
said
be
that because it's like, I respect the therapist part too, but it's the humanity
Yes.
where we have seen this, we have seen the changes. We have seen what has gone in and what has come out.
And it's true. And, a big piece of the work at Spark, right, the mission, the sacred mission of Spark was to liberate and grow the spark within every person.
Right.
Every person, not just the children, but every person who was within the community, and that it needed to be done within a community. So I take on the role of principal, and with that, I think that's the first of the grounding force of a new type of authority. So my very first set of work was on myself of how do I reimagine this role of principal, where I fully engage my heart every day, embody it, show it on my face, wear it on my sleeve, be authentic in heart, be an example of heart, show up with the might to fight division,
Yes.
oppression, separation. I will not let you go down that road. That's not who you are, and I will stand strongly for that. And then to help the children to be invested in this imaginative process of envisioning positive outcome, right? Positive future. And one of the first things we did at our community meeting was the kids decided on what the value of their culture was going to be. Do you remember
Yes,
that?
my God.
And the two main qualities was kindness and charity. They wanted to be a school that was kind and that was charitable, that gave, that had fundraisers, that was generous. And once they decided that beautiful values, it became okay. It will take a lot of hard work to be able to, what we talked about last time, breathe life into these values. How are we going to walk them? How are we going to live them? And we set up training, right? We had empathy training of the heart, of understanding someone else's position. We had emotional intelligence training, find your words. I feel, I think, I know, I am, right? That kind of language training. We had embodiment training, mindfulness. Where is your body at? Where are you at? Tuning in. All part of a very rigorous type of training program. And then we had the practice of intentional dialogue brought down to a child's level, which we called the power dialogue, right?
Yes.
With talking stick. We had heart listening, which was active listening, and they learned to really listen. We had the full apology. How do you fully come into the exchange of apology? All very kind of based in cognitive skills. We're training the mind, the good mind. And then ultimately, and I think because of my alignment with this role of a new kind of loving authority, I felt so much gratitude and delight in being able to help navigate children through whatever they were going through.
Oh my God,
to me,
Marianne.
I loved it.
My head spins to even recall.
But I would
Yes.
see them crying, and I have to have my empathetic face on. But my heart is like, how beautiful! Look how pure those tears are, and they're so
Cleansing.
full. When was the last time I cried like this? Like, I appreciated their expression of emotion and frustration, and because they're all good. Children are good. There's no such thing as a bad child. We have them in the most beautiful, purest of times.
Yes.
So there was always this inner delight that I really tried to cover up so I could show them we were serious about what we were working on. And we were, but it was heart serious versus judgment serious.
That's right.
We got to get serious so I know what consequence to give you. And then that allowed a trust to enter more of a play space with me that was serious play.
Yes.
Because the goal of it was to shift behavior.
Well, when you were saying the excitement that you saw and also the rigor and the seriousness, part of recognizing what a human being is kind of shifts your perspective from look how low this human has gone to where you're very hard on them to you could still be very hard on them. I'm not saying this about you because you know who they are.
Yes.
But
yes.
just the shift is all the difference.
Complete difference.
Because now you're doing it with a rigorous enthusiasm, not a heavy-handed judgment. What have you done? Oh, why would you do this? This is terrible. You're not telling them what they are. You're telling them who they are made to be. Let's get right back to work. You messed up, back to work. We know who you are.
We recognize the mistake, right? That we will always recognize.
Of course, yes.
But we also recognize that part of you that will fully rise from the mistake and make it right and return. You got lost, you got separated, you got disconnected. We're going to return, and that is the work. And I think of actually one of the programs that you and I created. So with our oldest students, right, our 5th grade students, there was some subtle bullying going on. Not big bullying, like I'm going to beat you up on the playground, but little nasty, mean comments, little digs.
But it's where bullying is born.
Yes.
And
So
what
the
you didn't like
community
was that.
saw it. They brought it. There were tears. There was frustration. And we knew that we had to create a form for them to practice differently. Because a big piece of it is their hearts were good, right? They just didn't know what to do in the face of this, how to respond. And so we developed and practiced with them 4 roles from which they could respond to the bullying.
Yes.
The first was, And they needed to check in with themselves which role they, in fact, were most comfortable doing,
yes,
right?
yes.
If they felt that they saw some bullying.
They got to try all of them, though, first.
Absolutely.
To find their voice.
Yes, Laura, you're remembering.
Yes.
You're helping me remember. So the first was the bodyguard, the person who just sees it happening and will just be there and stand in the face of it as a force of I am beside you and I will not let this go on.
You're not alone.
You're
Bottom
not
line.
alone. I am here with you. The second was Speaker of the House. And the Speaker of the House stepped forward and reminded in very simple terms what our community culture is about. We are a culture of kindness and charity. We do not behave this way towards each other.
And they did say, I want to point out,
Yes.
we. They did not
We,
say you.
always
it was
we.
not
We.
a judgment is you cannot do this. It's this is not us.
Right,
Come
and
on.
you're with
and
us.
you're one of us. It was
Yes.
inclusive, every one of these, right?
The other was the Earth Angel, and that was the one who, the kid who really excelled at empathy, who would put their hand on the shoulder of either the bully or the person who was being bullied and just be like, I understand, I know this is hard, offering that kind of empathetic support. And then the fourth was the peacemaker who had really mastered the intentional dialogue, problem-solving dialogue, and could say, listen, let's go sit down together and I'll sit between and we will work this out. We'll use the power dialogue. So they had these roles. And then they practiced, they tried them on, they did pretend scenes. We did a lot of sociodrama around it. And then comes time for the playground. We said, we are going to make this a game. Every day, without anyone knowing except the person who's chosen, there will be an undercover bully on the playground.
This was
Remember?
amazing.
So now they begged to be the can I be the undercover? And that I thought was so interesting because it speaks to humanness, right? That shadow bully is in us.
Yes.
It's in our mind for sure, right? We
They're like,
want
I
to
know
play
just what they'll do.
it. And I get to play it out without getting in trouble.
A side note, when Marianne took her turn, she was quite good.
I was a bully like I've never been in my life.
But we should be.
Yes. Yes. But the kids we'd secretly choose, they'd be out there. Suddenly, something would go and they didn't know. So it could be anyone on the playground, and they'd work this out. And then after, we'd come in from recess and we'd process. So what went on there? And the person who got to play the bully was able to give feedback about what it felt like to be the bully. And for the most part, what we got to was that the bully really just wants to connect,
Right.
doesn't quite know how to get in,
They're odd man out and they squeeze their way in.
and feel
appropriately.
really embarrassed when the community stood up, but then also felt like there was a way to move through it. And that the other thing they came to is that when the bully is encouraged by laughing at them or going along with them, this bully role gains a certain type of power. And that is the opposite of love, right? It is power rooted in control and meanness, just meanness, not okay in a charitable and kind community. So this, and this went on. And even after it was resolved, the issue within the grade, they would still ask us, can we play undercover bully? I'm like, sure, pick an
didn't
undercover
you
bully.
notice that it actually heightened their awareness where, say, somebody snuck a little zinger in,
Right.
they found this strength to actually do it because they didn't know, is this undercover or not? But they know what to do regardless.
And with all that practice, because most bullying we don't get to hear, and especially what we're talking about are those kinds of comments that just hit the soul hard, and especially if we're looking at kids and they're tender and we're talking about the development of who I am, what their peers say about them. stings and can leave a mark. So they were able to translate it then into just, talk at the cafeteria table. The bystanders suddenly began to have this heart language.
Yeah.
That wasn't a fight.
You normalized heart conversations.
Right. And what's going on? That's not who we are. Do you need to do a peacemaking session? These kinds of opportunities and vehicles begins to make it comfortable to address and to also be more fully in the heart. So there it was. There the community is starting to build onto itself. And even when a child would act out in class, right? So let's say a child had a display in class that was out of the norm of the culture, and that was disturbing. That couldn't just disappear into nowhere.
It happened.
It happened, and we had to acknowledge the happening, and we had to integrate both the children who witnessed and the child who acted out that way. Otherwise, there is a disconnect, and that's where the beauty of the morning community meetings came in, where we did plenty of circles with the child who did have a rough time and maybe had a sensory meltdown, sit in the middle of the circle, hear his community, just give him gentle feedback about
Remember
the
they would
impact.
say something they loved about them?
Yes, the impact, and then something they loved.
Yes.
Right. That was hard to hear, and I know I have seen you be so kind and gentle in other ways.
It's not you. It's ultimately the bottom
Right.
line.
But it's also, we're not going to pretend that didn't have an impact on my heart. It's hard.
Isn't it saying more to them? Listen, you did this. This isn't in line with the heart that I recognize.
Right. That is basically what the translation is, for sure. So it's starting to
So
get
it's bringing them back into that alignment.
Yep. And then, we've talked about the feeling dragons, with the three dragons, which is feeling, thinking, and knowing. So it is these three elements that we've been talking a lot about, right? I feel, heart. I think, very basic for kids, mind. I know, this integration of heart and mind, which
love
is
that.
ultimately wisdom in a way. And so those three, practicing with these puppets, which makes it fun and delightful and as outrageous as it needs to be, ultimately shifts.
Well, it's a good setting to debug.
On a concrete level,
On a
yes.
concrete level.
On the
In the
embodied
same way
level.
people throw paint or, go to a destruction room or keep...
Yes.
One of the... I don't know if it's like intentionally hidden, but here's a little secret for people. People who just do the basic activity of keeping a journal are like so much healthier mentally because they get to debug a lot of stuff without all the troublesome reaction of acting it out in real life.
Yes, I agree. We
It's
need to
great.
empty. That is
Yeah.
a big part of us. Is again, we ask this question: what does it mean to be human? We fill up as human beings,
Yes.
and we
The
need
weary
this.
that you said when it makes
Yeah.
you cry.
Totally so filled
Too
up
much.
that the tears. And, our speech pathologist, Teresa, always used to say, Spark is therapy in the hallways. I was like, absolutely. Like, that is the idea of this is so much part of who we are as human beings, that we address, work it out. Yeah, I was always conscious, right, as a leader who is kind of taking on the responsibility of modeling the heart walk. People, children, adults are hearing me. They will sometimes hear a really firm voice, cut to the bottom of something. Sometimes they'll hear a very empathetic, but they're modeling. I'm modeling this process
And
of engagement.
I absolutely believe that there's two levels of teaching going on in every lesson where there's somebody presenting something in front of them. The first is the academic, and the other is the presenter, what they model in their behavior. I always think the second is the more impactful.
Right. Right.
And it is, and you're also trusting when you've had to be the tough love, which we'll talk about at some point without apologies, actually. You're also trusting that I love this child, that no matter what it may look like or be misrecognized as from the outside, I'm committed to this.
Completely.
I still know who their heart, what is at the core of them. I know their essence, and I stand firm with that. It does not matter any interpretations of what is happening.
Yes.
And it's having the courage. That's one of those wardrobe things. It's like, I'd have to be in my wardrobe to do it because it takes guts.
It does. It takes awareness. It takes awareness and it takes practice. And part of when you talk about the trust that I instill in the kids,
Yeah, I love
like
to
when
say that.
we're in this kind of play process of solving problems that is joyful, I trust when they're complete. So if I say, you think you're good? You think you're going to go back and not hit each other? Yeah, we're good. Go for it. I
Yes.
am not going to drill into their heads what's going to happen. They're good. And listen, if you have a trouble, come right back here. We'll go back to the drawing board because I
love
have
that.
complete trust in they are working it out, and kids work it out way quicker than we do as adults, and they forgive way quicker. They're so much more willing, so they can actually empty out quicker, move on, and if they hit a mistake again, they come on back, and we go back
It's
at
fine
it.
tuning, though, usually after the first.
Yes,
right?
yes, because there is a sense of the joy of problem solving.
I am going to add one thing to casual observation. Some of them might just sneak a little naughty in because they liked that creating space.
Yes, it's true.
I've seen it.
I remember, we had to actually create, okay, do you want to just have lunch with me once a week? Remember, we would do the lunchtime. You don't have to do some naughty to come in.
Right. That's also an option. So much to be said about this developing, because I think there's a young heart and a heart with our experience are made of the same stuff. What it's made of does not change, and actually the qualities of the heart only become better and stronger, but so do the bad habits with time. So what I'm looking toward is, as we continue exploring the heart, and now just this kind of higher awareness of the heart and properly recognizing others and also ourselves, and being able to better recognize our own actions and understand ourselves. We talked a lot last time about interacting with others, but it begins with the inside job of only we can do.
Yes.
And where there might be, I'm hoping I can talk you into getting something to eat with me and deciding where there's overlap and where to go. But what do you think about
Yeah, I just think that it's
no need to reinvent the wheel. You did it.
Well, no, I think that we're in this kind of process of growth that we talked about over the last few sessions of the greening of our own heart. And as that happens, it sort of makes room to expand out from there.
Right.
So that's what I keep feeling, is this
Yes.
motion of the inner, the esoteric, and then the exoteric, like how we bring it out into the world, both working together.
I'm going to look up the adult name in German for adults. I like hair. So you have kindergarten. We should rename the garden for the adult garden.
That's
where this happens,
beautiful.
and maybe that's what we'll do. I don't know why because I pictured also with spring. We've been talking a lot of ideas, and something's in the air, and there's this light, and there's water and there's air. But guess what? Something's about to break through the earth, which is concrete.
And
We're
I'm going to
headed there
tell you
in this
something
garden, right?
that's going to work in this adult garden. One of my new ideas that has popped up is to do a very fun and whimsical workshop called Wise Woman Makeover. Where you go in to the garden and make yourself over.
So if I've been posing as a wise woman, does it make like affirm that I really am in?
You're
makeover?
we totally can make
I
yourself
love
over.
it. That's what I was trying to think of when I told you about. Remember, I kept referring to the Maybelline ad. That was it.
Oh.
Do you remember I said, what was it you said? The
Yes.
makeover show.
Yes,
I
the
could not
Wise
put it-
Woman Makeover. That's
Okay,
it. So
I'm
play.
being
We're going to
scattered,
bring it into
but-
adulthood.
But so for next time, the adult garden, and we're not talking about Eden.
Okay.
We're trusting. Where trust is recaptured like it was originally.
Yes, and play.
And we do what we should with that
arrives.
trust, hopefully. Marianne, thanks for taking the time to do this. It's just a lot to build on. Sometimes, you know how I get. We have to just take the few moments here and there to orient before we start building the next
Yes, absolutely.
section. And then we can remove the frame when, I'm still in your words, you see what's happening,
I
right?
love it.
Then
Love
we can
it.
remove the frame once we have something solid there.
Sounds good.
Once again, thanks for listening to us. You can like and share. We're here on Strong Island. Enjoy. Is it going to be the first day of spring before next time or not?
It is. It passed.
We're in
Lori.
spring?
Yes. Spring
To
has
me,
awoken.
There's summer and winter. So
did.
everything else is
Spring
like,
is here.
yeah, it's summer for me then. Enjoy spring and get ready to see what can come through in the garden. And until then, please farewell.
Farewell.